What's up, people? Brandon from Vor Motors here, bringing you a guide to maintain your ride. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to change the components that make up the folding mechanism on your cruiser. Reasons why you might need to do this: maybe you got into an accident and you bent or broke some of these parts, or maybe you just want to add some fun colors to your cruiser. You can pick up both of these parts off of vormotors.com, and when they arrive in the mail, you can just bolt them around to your cruiser. Well, sort of. It's a bit more of an involved process, but fear not, I'm going to take you step by step through the entire thing. Let's get right into it. With the cruiser folded, apply some downward pressure to the stem. This will hold your S-knob in place while you unscrew it. Then, there are 3 screws that hold the S-knob mechanism in on this side, and the same 3 screws on the other side. Remove them completely. Next, we will remove this screw and the same one on the other side to remove the folding mechanism bumper. Next, we're going to remove the axis that the scooter folds on. You'll need a wrench to hold the nut on the other side in place, then an Allen wrench makes short work of it. Be mindful not to lose those washers or the nut. Screw the S-knob back in. I use the multi-tool to push the screw out of the scooter, and you can remove that completely. As you fold the scooter back up, some parts may fall. Make sure you keep track of them. Pull on the S-knob to unlock the scooter, and you'll be able to separate the stem from the deck of the cruiser. Unscrew your S-knob again, and then compress the spring-loaded mechanism to remove it from the folding mechanism. Screw the S-knob back in to keep the spring-loaded mechanism together. If you need to replace the folding mechanism base, keep watching. If you need to replace the top part of the folding mechanism, skip ahead to the timestamp shown. To pull the folding mechanism base off, we need to pull this black cover. 4 screws in the front and 2 screws on the side need to be removed completely. I use a wrench to help me pry off the plastic cover. Pull out the controller and all of the wiring. To disconnect the power, locate the thick red and black wires with the white and green connectors. Carefully pinch them and pull them apart. Keep the white covering over the metal contact so that it doesn't accidentally short out. The controller stores power, so don't be alarmed if you touch these 2 wires together and they spark. You can cover the metal contacts in electrical tape to avoid that spark. On the right side of the cruiser, find another red and another black wire with the same connectors and pull them apart. Again, keep the white part of the connector over the contact to avoid shorting. Don't touch the red contact point to the black contact point. Now let's undo the yellow, blue, and green wires on the right side of the cruiser. Same method, just pinch and pull them apart. Push those wires through the cruiser deck and pull them out the front. On the right side of the cruiser, find these white connectors and disconnect them. There's the locking tab you need to push down before pulling them apart. This black connector is next. Press down on the tab on top to unlock them and disconnect them. push it through to the right side of the scooter. Same story with this one, and then you can pull the wire through the right side of the cruiser. Use the same method to disconnect the small connectors with black and red wires. Later on, we'll need to remove these connectors completely, but I will show you how to do that later. The connector that joins this yellow wire and red wire needs to be disconnected. Pull the yellow wire through the left side of the deck. Start disconnecting more connectors with the intention of freeing up any wires that run to the left side of the cruiser. I will show you how to put all of these back later. You reach a point where your controller is completely free from the scooter, so set it aside. Now pull all the free wires through the left side of the cruiser. The only wires that will pass from the side cavities to the middle cavity should now be these red and black wires. To remove these connectors, hold them with the locking tab facing the ceiling, stick in a thin pair of tweezers or a pick just above one of the metal contacts, and wiggle it up and down. Then pull the wire out the back of the connector. Do the same thing for the remaining contacts. Stick your tweezers in the hole above the metal contact, wiggle it up and down to unlock, and then pull the wire out the back. With the connectors off, you can finally pull these wires through. You should now have no wires bridging between the side cavities and the middle cavity. Now there's 2 screws on the left, 2 on the right, 3 on top, and 4 on the bottom that need to come out. The screws are different, so make note of where they came from so they go back in the right spot. I'm using a screwdriver to pull out those front 2 spacers, and that gives me enough room to wiggle the base out. Hang on to these spacers, there are 4 of them in total. To make installing the new part easier, loosen these top 4 screws, but don't remove them. Slide in your new folding mechanism base, making sure that the battery cables run through the center of it. Stick 1 spacer in each of the corner so that they allow the screw to pass through. Now you can start reinstalling the screws that hold on the folding mechanism base. Once you get the 4 on the bottom tighten down the 4 screws on top that we loosened earlier. Then there's 2 screws on each side and 3 on top. Make sure they are all tight. Hold up the front cover so you know which wire goes in through the left and which wire goes in through the right. Loop them together like you're tying your shoes. As you can see here, the locking mechanism is flat, so we need to bend it back up so we can reinstall the connectors. I'm using a pick to bend that metal tab up so that it sits diagonally. Here it is again. Make sure all 4 wires have the tabs bent up. Starting with the red wire in one hand with the metal tab pointing up, and the connector in the other hand with the locking tab pointing up, stick the wire into one of the holes in the back and keep pushing until it clicks. Give it a tug to make sure it locks. Then insert the other red wire into the other hole of the connector using the same process. Do the same for the black wires. As a reminder, the black wires share a connector and the red wires share a separate connector. It doesn't matter which holes the wires go into as long as red is with red and black is with black. Now let's reinstall our controller. Starting with the green, yellow, and blue wires, stick them through the right side of the Cruiser and connect them to their respective colors. The connectors just pop back into place. Make sure that the white cable protector covers the metal connection. This white connector is next. Pass it through to the right side and connect it to its other half, making sure that they lock together. On the left side, push these 2 wire connectors through and pull them out the center. The green, red, and black wires connect to a connector on the controller with the same colors. Back on the right side now, push this wire and connector through the center and find the connector with the matching color combo and order. Plug those in. Left side now, push these black and red wires with their connectors through the center and connect them to the connectors we reinstalled earlier. The connectors that hold red wires go together, and the connectors that hold black wires go together. You may notice these 2 connectors with the same colored wires coming from them. With the circuit board facing the ceiling and the wires coming from the underside of the board, the lower set of wires powers the left turn signal, so plug that connector into the connector coming from the left side of the deck. The right turn signal cable will plug into the remaining connector. Remember, when holding the board with the wires coming out of the bottom, the top wires go to the right turn signal and the lower wires go to the left turn signal. Push these 3 connectors through the left side. The two connectors with multiple wires have their identical counterparts coming from the controller, so those are easy to connect. The single white wire plugs into the connector with the white and black wires. Push these three connectors through the left side. The connector with two black wires links up to the connector with one black wire. The connector with one white wire and two red wires links up to the connector with the red and green wires. And this connector with the red and black wire connects to nothing. This blue and black cable connector links up with the red and black cable connector that hangs off of the thick red and black power wires. Push this yellow wire through, and that connects to the single red wire. This black and red connector gets pushed in from the side and connects to the brown and blue wires coming from the small circuit board. This red and black connector coming from these wires should also be disconnected. Locate the four wires coming from the battery. The thinner red and the thinner black wires go through the side of the cruiser and connect to the charging port. When connecting them, make sure that the white covering covers the metal contact points. Then connect the thicker battery cables to the controller. I plug in black first. Be prepared for a popping sound when you plug these in, and make sure to cover up the metal contact points. One of our technicians, Skylar, came up to test everything. If you are having trouble reinstalling the controller, Foro has a video that teaches you how to do that job. Make sure you test everything before reinstalling all the wires. Now stuff all the wires and the controller into the deck of the cruiser, being mindful not to damage any connectors or pinch any wires on the way in. Then you can slide the cover back on, and you might want to hammer it into place with a rubber mallet to push everything in. I get the front 4 screws completely tight before moving on to the 2 side screws. If you only needed to replace that part, skip ahead to the listed timestamp where I show you how to reassemble the 2 halves. If you need to replace the other half of the folding mechanism, then keep watching. Let's start by removing the front fender. 2 screws hold it on. As you remove them, be careful not to lose the spacers. Loosen one of the wheel nuts with a wrench and remove it completely. Use a screwdriver and a hammer to drive the front wheel pin out of the front fork. Pull the wheel out, being careful not to bend or touch the brake rotor. Don't lose these wheel spacers. The smaller one goes on the brake caliper side of the fork, and the longer one goes on the other side. Unscrew this little white cover to reveal the 4 screws that mount the stem base. Unscrew all 4 of these. And I also like to loosen this screw on the brake caliper just to give me a little more slack. Shake the stem base and it will separate from the stem. Then take one of your stem base screws and screw it halfway back into the pin that holds the folding mechanism in. Slip a wrench over it and hit it with a hammer to pull the pin out. Be careful not to bend the screw as you hammer. For the last bit, I was able to pull the pin out just by twisting it. Now you have unlocked the top of the folding mechanism, and don't lose those washers that come out with it. This pin is useless, but the replacement part comes with a new one. With your replacement part ready, slip in the washer on top, slide in the new unit, and slip a washer in on the bottom. Push in the new pin as much as it will go, making sure the threaded side faces out. Then use a hammer to drive it completely in. Reinstall your stem base with the pointy side facing forward and the rounded side facing backwards. Tighten up those 4 screws. Then screw that little plate back on. Transfer this spacer from the old part to the new part. It's pretty easy to take out and just taps into the new unit easily. Line up the holes and install this screw, the washers on the other side, and the nut, but don't tighten them down fully just yet. Fold the stem forward so we can reinstall the S-knob. Unscrew the S-knob while compressing the spring. Slide it into the folding mechanism and install those 3 screws. Then tighten down the S-knob and make sure it moves in and out freely. Fold the scooter up just past the locking point and slide in this guide plate on the other side. Line up the holes and tighten down those 3 screws. Let's install this bumper. Stick it into place and then tilt the stem back just a bit to give you enough room to put it where it belongs. 1 screw on each side holds it in, and once you have them tight, you can tighten down this screw and nut to keep everything aligned. Test the folding mechanism to make sure it's installed correctly. Now we can reinstall our wheel. Push the wheel pin in the left side of the fork, pop on the small spacer, then slide your wheel on, making sure that the brake rotor goes in the brake caliper. Push the pin through a little bit more, slide on the longer spacer on the other side of the wheel, and then you might need a hammer to push the pin the rest of the way through. Thread on the other wheel nut and tighten it down with a wrench. You need a second wrench to hold the other wheel nut in place while you tighten. Retighten this screw on the brake caliper. If you need to adjust your brakes, Voro has a video that shows you how to do that. We've linked it below. Slide on your fender and the spacers. Tighten the 2 screws that hold it on. And you're all done. Fold your cruiser and admire your handiwork. And that's everything you need to know to replace the folding mechanism on your cruiser. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up down below. That really helps us out, guys. You can also leave a comment if you have any further questions or just want to comment on the video. Don't forget to subscribe to Voro Motors. We release weekly videos that show you how to maintain and repair your scooters, as well as some fun content as well. Until next time, this has been Brandon from Voro Motors, and I approve this message. Take care.